The following is a presentation of iRacing.com Motorsports Simulations on LSRTV, the voice of sim racing.
Good evening, sim racing fans, and welcome to those of you watching on Facebook Live and YouTube. This is LSRTV's coverage of the RealSimRacing.com Full Throttle Cup Series, presented by Gary Mercer Trucking, live tonight from Charlotte Motor Speedway in Concord, North Carolina. I'm James Pike, joined tonight in the booth for a brief little bit before he goes out on track races by our one and only Austin Coop, and we've got our virtual button presser extraordinaire and super excited wrestling fan Cisco Scarluzza down in our virtual production trailer this evening. And Coop, even though the actual cup race was, there are cloudy skies in the middle of the afternoon, NIS ran the night race, as this race has usually been in previous seasons. So we're running conditions that are identical to NIS, and that means that, save for the temperature difference, this race actually should play out a lot like the race in May did.
Yeah, exactly, and we're going to be, it's going to be very similar conditions. When we were back here in May, I ran in that one too, and we had very slick conditions all over the place just because of the nature of how the track progresses through the practice and qualifying sessions. It's going to be really hard to pass. I think you're going to notice that, but there's going to be a lot of guys who are fast on the short runs, and those are going to be the guys to watch later on if we have some long green flag runs tonight, is that we're going to have some drivers that just know how to get around here, but maybe don't know how to conserve just a little bit on the tires, which I'm actually one of those people. But then you'll have a lot of drivers that are able to really have that long run car to survive throughout the race, and I think those are the guys to probably watch tonight.
And in addition to those drivers, I think we also have to talk about the 12 drivers that are competing for the championship as we begin the round of 12 for the RealSimRacing.com Full Throttle Cup Series playoffs. David Washington, David Comstock, Dylan Jones, Daniel Eberhardt, Carl Shedd, Andrew Friedars, Trevor Rapolo, Brandon Bowie, Dwayne Vincent, Nick Silver, Shane Ewing, Lionel Calisto. Your 12 men who are eligible for the championship this evening, and all the men that we will have to be paying attention to tonight as the championship battle takes shape once again.
Yeah, and you're seeing the playoff standing right there in front of you right now, and you've got to think about those 12 drivers being in a predicament. They're not the only 12 drivers on the field tonight. There's 26 drivers total that'll be racing tonight, and you've got to really know that those guys will have to maneuver themselves around traffic if they need to. You've got a lot of guys towards the front. You've got Carl Shedd, he's right there. Andrew Farniards right now, he has the pole, and he's right in the thick of it. He's in 6th place right there. And you've got Washington, Comstock, Cato. He's been doing really well the last few weeks. And Jones, that's your top 5, and they're all in the playoffs right now.
All in the playoffs, all going to be starting near the front of the field, barring anything crazy that happens. But it won't necessarily be easy and done and dusted for a lot of these drivers, and it can get tricky up there. I remember in May, David Washington was running near the front of the field, and he ended up in trouble and ended up wrecking out with about 20 laps to go. And David Comstock also has the experience of the victory that he got when we were here in May. So definitely some experience, I think, amongst a lot of those front runners, and especially with the Aegis horsepower that you've got and all the horsepower that Comstock's got too. It'll be fun to watch those two groups and the PowerTech drivers go at it tonight.
Oh yeah, definitely will, and I think that we'll definitely have a lot of fun tonight here at Charlotte.
But in the meantime, we're going to go ahead and roll to tonight's LSRTV starting grid, which is headed up by the 88 of Andrew Freenars, who claims the pole with a time of 26.941 seconds. He's joined on the outside of the first row by David Washington in the 98 machine. David Comstock, winner here in May, starts from third. Ross Cato got caught up in a wreck, cost him his spot in the round of 12 in the playoffs, but rebounds with a strong qualifying effort so far. He'll start fourth. Dylan Jones will begin tonight from the fifth position. Lionel Calisto rolls off from sixth. Carl Shedd and Tanner Tallarico make up row 4, and Daniel Everhart and Corey Wolf will start 9th and 10th.
11th starting place is going to go to Nick Silver in the number 24. The double O, Gabe Wood, going to start 12th. 13th going to go to Brandon Bowie. 14th to Shane Ewing. 15th going to go to Trevor Rapallo. 16th to Doug Roth. 17th to Sean Casto. 18th Sean Bounty. 19th is going to be Austin Coop, who just headed down the stairs into his Toyota Camry. And Bruce Pearson rounds out your top 20.
Cisco Scaramuza joins me up top side here in the booth now. Nelson Rivera will start from 21st tonight. Anthony DeBarro from 22nd. John Abbott and Dakota Bowman, 23rd and 24th. Dakota making his 2017 debut. Jason Cameron Jr. starts from the 25th spot. Douglas Wyatt, 26th. While it's worth noting that 21st through 26th did not take a time and are starting on provisionals, they round out your field for tonight's race here in the Full Throttle Cup Series from Charlotte as we get set to look at the track facts for this 1.5 mile facility, about 15 minutes to the northwest of uptown Charlotte in North Carolina. We'll go for 125 laps this evening, 187.5 miles, 24 degrees of banking in turns 1 through 4, 5 degrees of banking on the straightaway.
Yeah, and of course
we
talk about that bump, I was going to say, Pike, in 1 and 2 that characterizes this mile-and-a-half oval and how tricky it can be going into 1 and 2. Of course, the jam-packed traffic that you get coming out of turn 2 as well.
Jam-packed traffic out of turn 2, but I think we also have to talk about what happens in turn 4 and the way that everything closes up ever so tightly. If you go 3 wide through there, normally it just does not end well.
Yeah, no, it does not, but these guys have to make sure they watch that safer barrier and make sure the transition back onto the flat when they come through the tri-oval works well for them and they can get the grip that they need.
Here in this 29th race of 36 of the 2017 season. Glad to have you with us here on LSRTV for tonight's broadcast of the Full Throttle Cup Series presented by Gary Mercer Trucking, which is green from Charlotte. Freenars jumps out to the race lead as they come through the tri-oval for the first time, or the hex oval if we're going to be quite particular. And Freenars will go to first, Washington to second quickly, Comstock will go underneath Cato. They'll run side by side down the back straightaway for third, and then you've got Dylan Jones who's trying to clear Carl Shedd for the 4th spot. Does that, so now it's Shedd and Calisto running side by side for position as they come out of turn 4 for the first time.
Yeah, side by side, those two going at it. Calisto trying to make his number known at the top of the standings here. Has done an excellent job in the playoffs so far and really had a resurgence of performance, has that 97. Done an excellent job, and he's looking for more. That's Dylan Jones in front of him, then Ross Cato right in front of him as well, coming up for that 97 of Calisto.
Calisto trying to make his way back up a few positions, already holding serve as it stands, but under a lot of fire from Carl Shedd, from Daniel Everhart. Tanner Tallarico's right there, as is Nick Silver, who, if I'm not mistaken, is running a Jimmy Spencer throwback this evening. So, a few fun colors there that will hail back to the early 90s for the fans who know their history on that number 24 machine right now. He sits in the 10th position as it stands. Up ahead of him, it's all single file for the most part. Up to Freenars, some people trying to work in that second groove already, but for the most part, everybody's just kind of stuck down there on the bottom.
Yeah, everybody's on the bottom. The first side-by-side battle we see right behind these guys. Corey Wolf going at it with the 9 of Rapallo, and they're going to go single file. Now Roth actually going to fall back right behind those guys. They'll go side-by-side. That's Gabe Wood in the 00 up on the top side. And the 46 of Callisto trying to make things happen as well. It's going to get a little sketchy there through the tri-oval, but they hold on to it. 2x2s. They head into 1.
2x2 back there. Wood rolling the top side with the momentum, should be able to get the spot from Roth, and does. Clears him, so that should put Gabe Wood up into the 14th position. And up further in the field, Daniel Eberhardt has gone to the outside of Tanner Tallarico, and we'll have the 8th spot. Nick Silver now trying to grab 9th for the number 1 machine, and he'll be able to do just that as they go into turn 1.
Yeah, Silver, an excellent pass right there, and Tallarico not getting the run he wants through 1 and 2, and Eberhardt's going to look for more. It's the 45, the corporate teammate of his, right in front, the 45 of Carl Schett. Actually, no, those are 2 PowerTech drivers, and of course we talk about the corporate alliance, but the teammate's not really going to play a factor here, Pike, because it's every position for yourself here, because you want to make sure you're safe going into that next round of the playoffs.
When it matters most, you need to deliver. I think that's the motto for everybody. And I think David Washington may well be heeding that call, because all of a sudden he's all over the rear bumper of the number 88 of Farinars. And guess who he's brought with him? The number 42 of David Comstock. So blink and you might miss something here in Charlotte. All of a sudden we've got 3 cars racing for the lead at the front of this field.
Yeah, Comstock rocking the Pink Monster car this month in support of breast cancer awareness, so really cool to see him jumping on board with the rest of the Aegis crew. You see a lot of pink cars out here, James, and it's really cool to see all the drivers out giving out their support for breast cancer awareness, and 3 pink cars up at the top 3. That's pretty awesome.
Very, very cool to see. Also, not that you won't hear it from everywhere during this month, but get your scans when you can. Be proactive, not reactive, and it'll probably help save your life and might well just help save someone else's too. So, as it stands, though, you still have one of those pink cars out in the front of the field. That's Farinars. He's up there. I think he sort of stabilized a little bit. Washington maybe poking around. Looks like he might be kind of searching for lanes a little bit, or maybe that car just got a little bit tighter. Maybe he's trying to go find some speed on the top side of this racetrack, especially coming out of turn 2. Nothing doing yet, though, for the driver of the 98 as far as that battle for the lead is concerned, but David Comstock now jumping to the outside, and I wonder if the 42 might be trying to find a way to change up his line on the racetrack, and now it's getting interesting. Now I think that might have convinced Washington to make moves and go. Here he goes underneath Farinars to try and take the race lead. Won't have it out of 2. May have a decent run into turn 3, though, as they come down the backstretch.
Comstock got a little piece of the wall there, but he's using that outside, and he's able to wind the car up there and just fire it off these corners, James, but had to get out of the gas a little bit to avoid brushing the wall. They'll go side by side, and he lost all that time just because he had to get out of the gas. So Comstock had a position there, maybe to try and take it to the leader, falls back to 3rd for the moment. But we talk about this bottom groove, and remember, these guys had about an hour of practice here, and that gave them all the time they needed to put down as much rubber as they needed down on that bottom groove. We already started with a 50% track state, so it's pretty safe to say that we don't need a whole lot of grip up on the top side. We don't need to send the truck out there to add it up there, because, well, there's plenty up there, because that bottom side is extremely worked in tonight.
No truck, no VHT, and no PJ1 either. It will be straight rubber that makes this track come to life on the bottom early on in this race, and I have a feeling that drivers like Comstock might be responsible for working in the top side of this racetrack as we progress through the evening here. He has slid back, though, about a car length and a half to David Washington, and that is a stable battle for the moment, which is wild to look at and think about when you consider how much Washington is pressuring the 88, but still is in 2nd place, hasn't found a way to get the race lead yet.
Yeah, still in 2nd place. They head back to 3 once again, and Washington looking to see when he can get around the 88, seeing if he can make something happen. Caution, though, going to fly here at the racetrack, and it looks like problems for Doug Roth in the 43 and Sean Boundy in the 34.
First caution of the race here out on lap 14, and I believe Doug Kobe is the one who ended up in trouble. He was trying to avoid the rear bumper of Anthony DeBarro, and as he checked up, Sean Casto got into the back of him and sent him around, and when he sent Doug Roth around, Sean Bounty just didn't have anywhere to go. It was just kind of clipped there as the 43 went around, and both those drivers ended up in the wall with a significant amount of damage, and will probably end the nights as far as we're concerned for both Doug Roth and Sean Bounty, at least in terms of being competitive. That being said, everybody else looks like they'll be down on pit road for tires, starting with the race leader and going through just about everybody else in this race field. Nobody staying out on pit road, so I would imagine 4 tires and fuel here for just about everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. We got a second look from onboard Sean Bounty there, but everybody down pit road now, so we'll cut back to the camera we anchored on the Sunoco sign, and survey says everybody down right sign's up on a lot of the field here. Left side's going up. I see a little bit of movement. Nope, no one leaving their pit box. You see the smoke rise, everyone burning out of their pit box, and it's going to be very close at the line. Jones was trying to get Cato there, but either way, not a whole lot of changes. Brandon Bowie and Nick Silver swapped spots. Comstock was able to grab second, though, so big pickup for the driver of the 42. That's one less car he has to pass.
That, I think, is the biggest story here this first round of pit stops. David Comstock was able to get around David Washington and go grab the second position. Big time move there for the driver, the number 42, and I think also that's got to be decent practice for the end of this race as well.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right, James. This is going to be a case where Comstock, we saw him be able to use that outside line to his advantage, and well, take a look, he's going to be starting up there, so that's going to make it a whole lot easier for that driver of the 42. If he can get a really good run off the corner and be able to stay even, that's going to be the key. He has to stay even with Freenars if he hopes to make that outside line work, because otherwise he's just going to get left in the dust and have to drop in behind him. So lights are out on the pace car, though, so we're getting set to stack it all back up. So, well, let's take a look at that top 10.
Top 10 as it stands: Andrew Freenars, David Comstock, David Washington, Ross Cato, Dylan Jones, your top 5. Then Lionel Callisto, Carl Shedd, Brandon Bowie, Nick Silver, and Trevor Rapolo when they take the green here on lap 18 of 125. You mentioned it just a moment ago. I think we have to watch what Comstock does, especially coming out of turn 2. That's the place where you can really get a run on the top side of this racetrack, and if you're going to get around anybody using the outside, it will be coming out of that turn and then coming down the back straightaway. And if Comstock has calculated it correctly, he may well be the race leader when we come into turn 3. But we'll have to see. We'll have to watch how it shakes out on this restart. Freenars waits and waits and waits and then goes, and I think he caught Comstock off a decent amount there, because Comstock tried to jump it in the end, really got caught off guard, and David Washington's already clear of the number 42 machine, so Washington will go to second. Comstock might be in a battle for third here, and he's probably going to lose that too. Will lose that, actually, as Dylan Jones clears him, so a terrible restart for the 42 machine. And then the beneficiary, an Aegis driver, and another Aegis driver. What a surprise.
Yeah, I wonder if they maybe were working a little bit together on that restart, which is, that's A-okay. They can do that. So either way, Comstock, you know, in a sea of unfriendly faces to him anyway, and, you know, that wasn't for position. Nothing really Comstock could do there, but now he's going to have to work his way back through this field, and it's going to be a long time. But battle for the lead continuing. David Washington all over the back bumper of the 88. Backs off it, though, as they go side by side behind him, Shedd and Silver.
A lot of really good battles all over the place here. Shedd and Silver count as one. Washington putting the pressure on Freenars to try and go get the race lead away. A few more drivers dicing it up back towards the back half of the top 10 as well. Just all over the place, and they're starting to fan out on the surface of this racetrack too, which I think is also important to note.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, James. As the 24 are going to look to the outside now of David Comstock. Comstock was able to shake himself free of that battle, or at least is trying to, but Silver going to fire it out on the outside as they come through the tri-oval once again. Looking on board the 45 of Carl Shed. Back into turn one we go, though, and you can see that's the difference, that you wind the car up on the outside, you get such a run going into the corner, James, and you can really make that outside line work, and especially with the inside line as rubbered in as it is, it's a little bit harder to get the traction you need down there. I think that outside is going to be key to this race tonight.
I think someone's going to be able to slide up there, especially in the second half of this race, and find a way to make that work to their advantage really, really well. We're not quite at that point yet, but we're already starting to see a lot of drivers move up top. Just as you pan back through the top 10, Nick Silver just ran up there, Carl Shed was up there, Ross Cato was up there, Trevor Roppolo had been running up there for a little bit, as had Daniel Eberhardt. So there are a few guys that are already willing to try it this early on in the race, which I think speaks to just how rubbered in this track is and just how many grooves we're going to have once we get to the end of this thing tonight.
Yeah, Ross Cato just jumped to the inside of David Comstock. Comstock back up in that second groove. I think it takes him a little bit of time to get that car where he wants it in the run, where he gets the tire, where you can see him still going side by side with Callisto there as well. And meanwhile, those two leaders very close together, but not challenging each other quite yet. And if they do, I assure you we'll go find them, because right now, Washington all over the rear view mirror. You can see it right there of that 88 of Freenars, but not doing anything right now. I will say, though, Nick Silver has worked his way into that battle, as Comstock going to lose that position to Callisto. That battle for second is going to be fast approaching here, because Silver has got the NOS on tonight.
Silver's really got the high lane working better than anybody else in this race so far. He's the first man that's been able to jump up there and find consistent speed and also be consistently quicker than most of the other drivers in this race so far. Last time by, Freenars ran a 27.897. It was a 27.9 for Washington and a 27.8 for Silver. So quicker than Washington by about a tenth, and Freenars by about a tenth too. So Silver's there getting the speed on the top side, but can he pass the front two cars? That is a different question altogether.
Yeah, that's a tall order for that driver of the 24. He's going to have to hope that he can get that tire wear to go in his favor a little bit, because I don't think Washington's going to let him easily get up there. And Washington is probably capable of just taking that line away right now, James. And for Silver, it's going to be a case of, I think, long-term running seems to benefit that 24 in so many different situations, as it does usually the 98. So I'm curious to see the long run. Freenars hasn't really had long run speed this season so far. At least I haven't seen it out of him. I've really seen that out of the 98. I've seen that out of the 24 as well as the 42. And speaking of Comstock, but it's gone from bad to worse, because he's back to 10th right now.
That car really, really struggling on this run. I'd say very, very ill handling machine at the moment, and the adjustments that they made on pit road just have not worked at all for David Comstock, which is a bit of a rarity. Usually we don't see things like this happen to the number 42 all that often, so I wonder if he's already in a position where he's just trying to hang on and regroup for the next round of pit stops so he can fix the car up and make it quick once again.
Yeah, I get the feeling that's going to be the game plan for him. And, well, it's starting to spread out a little bit, but you see this nice little battle pack that starts behind Ross Cato. And we talk about the accordion effect, James. Well, there it is right there in front of you. Austin Coop likes to call it the slinky effect. Well, it looks like an accordion out there to me, and Comstock going to try and jump to the inside to try and get to the head of this group.
Tries and then makes a little bit of contact down the back straightaway with Daniel Eberhardt. Just a little donut on the inside of the 90 machine and the outside of the 42, but it cost Comstock another spot, and Brandon Bowie was able to jump around him, so move Bowie now up a position as Eberhardt goes underneath Trevor Laropolo to try and grab the 8th position away.
No, you're absolutely right, and Cato now going to slide up the track as well, so that's going to allow Kalisto down on the bottom side to make things happen as they come off the corner yet again. Actually, Cato's going to be able to hold on, uses that outside to his advantage, so the battle is on. Eberhardt versus Kalisto right now, and Kalisto is going to get a little bit pinched coming off the corner. It's going to get a little tight, and that's what we talked about at the top of this broadcast. It gets very sketchy coming off 4, but Eberhardt was able to wind that car up on the top side and is able to fire it to the inside of Cato now, and it looks like he might be able to clear him. Slide job. Nope, not gonna happen. No, it will happen. He got a very good run on that last bit of 2.
It was tight. It was really, really tight, but he was able to do it, and now he becomes the first man in this pack to clear the 12 of Ross Cato, which I think is really important when you consider how much Cato's been stacking up everybody here in this field. They've been losing about 1/10 to 2/10 per lap on the leaders of this race in the top 5. So anybody that can clear Cato sooner rather than later will be hurt much less in that department, and I think that's all the incentive you need to try and get around him. You don't want to lose touch with Fritos and Washington and Silver and company.
Yeah, now Dylan Jones just flashed past Nick Silver in that 24, was able to make that pass happen. We saw it just in 3 and 4, and now we have an Aegis blockade of the top 3's positions right now, a stranglehold, if you will, because it's nothing but pink and black and white out there at the moment. It's Aegis controlling this race.
Really, really strong run from the Aegis Motorsports drivers here to just absolutely plant a flag right at the front of this field, and everybody else is just kind of racing behind them. And I think we also can't forget the PowerTech drivers who have a close relationship with the Aegis drivers. You've got Carl Shedd and Daniel Eberhardt there. I'd say in the cleanest piece of racetrack at the moment, because they are away from most of the traffic. They're not really battling anybody now that Eberhardt has managed to clear that pack. Brandon Bowie has also managed to get around Ross Cato, and Cato currently finds himself in the middle of what was a 3-wide sandwich, what is down to a 2-wide sandwich, but is just not a lot of fun no matter how you shake it with the driver, the number 12 right now.
Ooh, it's going to get really sketchy. There's the 12 and the 97, barely made contact. They'll hold on to it, and caution now.
Trouble, big wreck on the front straightaway.
Coop.
One car got turned. Austin Coop ran into problems very, very early on corner exit, got into the side of the 59 machine of Dakota Bowman, tried to save it and come back across the track, and just could not save it in time, and spun like a pinwheel across the front straightaway, stopped right at the start-finish line. Heavy damage to the rear end of the number 53 machine, and it definitely was not intentional on Bowman's part, I don't think. It just looked like one of those racing incidents, but just a tough break for Coop here early on in this race.
Yeah, Coop's not going to be happy about that one at all, and it's a case we talked about at Pike, that safer barrier coming out of turn 4 really juts out of the wall, and it can catch you up, and I think Bowman was afraid that he was going to hit it there and just collected Coop there. Coop really just the victim in that point, nowhere he could really go. So we'll get a second look at that on board the one at Telrico.
And very interesting here, the 59 had to check up because he almost ran into the rear bumper of, I believe it was Kalisto, and ended up down towards the apron of the racetrack. I don't know what happened with that.
Telrico just got, I think he just got loose trying to avoid the 53, and you see him on the brakes hard there. I don't see a whole lot of damage on the one, so I think he just got a little bit loose, and that's all it took to spin that one out. He didn't hit anything, so that's the good thing, and he'll be able to keep piloting that car without having to repair too much damage. Pike, but everybody back on pit road.
Everybody on pit road, including Bowman, after that very strange set of circumstances, though we did come across chat and at least unofficially apologize for the incident, so I presume that the caution claim is probably coming sooner rather than later, and I wonder if part of that move might have been his way of getting to the back of the field as the rules would have him do anyway. In the meantime, though, at the front of this field, not too much to be said about the drivers that are up there. Fredar's off pit road first, then Washington, then Jones. Carl Shedd got ahead of Nick Silver. That's about the only change in the top 5.
Yeah, everybody else stayed the same, and you see Anthony DeBarro jump in front of Trevor Roppolo there as well, but that's your group through the top 10, and some really interesting paint schemes out there. Wouldn't you agree, James?
Oh, you've got to try better than that. You really do have to try
Okay,
better than
well, I will tell you that the 10 is running a little bit different of a paint scheme. He's got the Bama paint scheme on there. You know who painted that?
Yes, I do. It happens to be our friends at Hippie's Paint Shop, who are an official sponsor of the RealSimRacing.com Full Throttle Cup Series here on LSRTV. Hippie's Paint Shop has over 5 years of experience providing top-quality custom paint schemes for all iRacing vehicles at a low price. Because after all, at Hippie's Paint Shop, the cost isn't high, just the painter. Most famous, I think, on the cars of Doug Roth and Douglas Wyatt, but we've got John Abbott in the field tonight as well, sporting Hippie's colors, and I'd say very hard to miss, always good with the bold paint schemes that grab your attention, grab your eyes, and I'd say tonight is no exception amongst the cars in this Full Throttle Cup Series field.
Yeah, and the one guy who's missing from this equation is the driver of the number 13, who's taking his provisional for being in the playoffs. Dwayne Vincent missing a race, but he will get a last race points total for him, or a last place points total for him. So not completely out of this ball game. I believe he's at a conference tonight. So we'll see the 13 hitting the high banks of Talladega Superspeedway in 1 week's time. And that's when we, of course, the next track that's coming up. And, well, discussion's been about that. We'll get more in depth with that at the end of this broadcast, because right now the lights are out on the pace car, and we're getting set to restart this thing.
Lights are out on the pace car. Restart to come on lap 40 as Dwayne will return next week to Talladega. And that's almost a home race for the Lafayette, Louisiana native. That and the race in a few weeks' time at Texas are the two ones that are closest to Mr. Vincent. So we'll reset our top 10 here before we take the green flag once again. It is Freenar's, Washington, Jones, Shed, Silver, Eberhardt, Bowie, DeBarro, Rapallo, Cato. 1 through 10. Washington now on the outside. We haven't really seen him run up there yet tonight. And of the folks that are up here in this top 5, he's been about as glued to the bottom as anybody, even when other drivers have started running up top. So could this switch up things a little bit? We'll see. It just depends on what kind of restart he gets and what kind of restart Freenar's pulled. They got a pretty good one last time to dump David Comstock back a few spots, and Comstock is now back in 13th. So I'd say the mission accomplished for the Aegis folks there that last time by, and this time by more of the same. A really good jump from Freenar's, who got clear of Washington, who immediately got to second, and then Jones got to third, and you've got fourth and fifth lining up right like ducks in a row. So already got Carl Shed, Daniel Eberhardt right there. First man to really try and put a challenge on either of them is Nick Silver, but he's sort of pinned on the bottom. And guess who? Anthony DeBarro has come up from 22nd to 7th already. He's got speed in that number 99 machine, trying to get around the outside of Nick Silver to go get the 6th position. He got it at the stripe, wants to take it away for good here coming down the back straight.
And let's not forget that the 99 definitely has a bone to pick with that team in front of him. The rivals from one season ago, and for him, cost him a lot of shots at being able to jump into this playoffs. I know DeBarro it would mean a lot for him to win this race, especially if he could get to the front of the Aegis train here. That would mean a lot for that driver in the 99. Meanwhile, battle behind him, you see the 44, Brandon Bowie, who's as they're discussing on the chat side, he's pretty overdue for a win here, James, and I wouldn't be surprised if we saw the 44 be able to get it done, but I've been extremely impressed with the speed out of Nick Silver tonight. He is absolutely tearing it up out there.
Nick Silver looking decent right now, sliding back a little bit here on this current green flag run, but has speed on the top side if they didn't change the setup too much. And if he can get up there, I have a feeling he'll start marching his way back towards the front, because that's where the 24 car has been happiest, not so much on the bottom. Up at the front of the field, though, David Washington has cleared Andrew Freenar. So, new race leader, it's the number 98 machine, and he's gone already. They'll come across the stripe here to complete lap 43, and Washington went from a 1/10 of a second deficit to nearly a half a second lead in a lap. David Washington is flat out flying at this point.
He's flying, and also a guy going for a little bit of a battle. Washington may have pulled away, but DeBarro's going on the offensive. It's going to get a little sketchy in 3 and 4. He slid up, nearly made contact with the 24 of Silver. He'll have to back out of the throttle again, and that almost got sketchy as the battle in front of those guys as well. Looks like it might be going on here, but Silver now jumping to the high side. He's going searching, James, and I think he found a little speed because here he comes off the corner right around the 90 of Daniel Eberhardt, and they'll fire it back into turn 3.
Right back to where that car is happiest, up in that second groove. He wants nothing to do with the bottom at this point because he just hasn't been able to roll the momentum on the top side the way he'd like on the bottom. So Silver now up another position back into the top 5. Next on the list will be Carl Shed, and we'll see whether or not Silver can run down the 45 relatively soon, or if that becomes a pretty tricky battle in and of itself.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, and welcoming into the broadcast booth here is the guy who just got out of the Xfinity car at Talladega. Welcome in, Mr. Brian Macklin. Welcome back to RSR. You had to take a little bit of a hiatus, but you're back now in the booth and back to some really good racing right now, my friend.
I tell you, I was sitting here listening to you two call this race, and it seems like nothing has changed at all. These guys are still putting on an absolutely incredible show, and now we're in the playoffs, as you guys already know, and the action has picked up that much more, and the racing just seems to intensify. I'm watching this battle right now going on around the number 99 of Anthony DeBarro, Daniel Eberhardt, Brandon Bowie. These guys are going at it, and now that that third groove is working, these guys are really starting to move up the racetrack, and you're starting to see a lot of speed coming off the corners. That's going to set up for some big runs coming off the track or off the corner, and could have given them an opportunity to make a dive down into turn 3 to try to take a position away.
Very, very close, very, very tight indeed back there. Also, eyes up on the number 11 of Dylan Jones, who now is starting to pressure Freenarch, whose car looks like it might be falling off a little bit now that he doesn't have the advantage of the clean air. Same, I think, can be said for Carl Shed, who's now trying to hold off Nick Silver in that 24 machine, and then I don't even know where you begin with this battle here back towards 10th. Trevor Roppolo, Lionel Callisto, David Comstock hasn't really been able to climb up that much since that last green flag run, only up to 11th from 13th, so he still has some work to do. But for the most part, relatively sorted outside of Washington as it stands. But as it stands is always a term that is very subject to change.
Absolutely, and for David Comstock, he's in a little bit of a treacherous spot because he needs to try to get closer to the front to make sure that he doesn't get caught up in a wreck so that he can try to gain some points to advance into the next round of the playoffs. He came in 17 points behind David Washington and well ahead of the cutoff as of right now, but with Talladega looming next week, James, you can't afford to have a bad night here because there's a good chance that you could have something go wrong next week at Talladega. You want to try to capitalize on these 2.5-mile tracks that are in this round of the playoffs. Make sure that you're going to get some good points there, and then just hope that nothing crazy happens at Talladega.
Speaking of crazy, do you know what I think is maybe most crazy out of all of this? Is that you look at everybody from about Nick Silver on back, with the exception of one Daniel Eberhardt, they are all now running the top side of this racetrack. Not a single person behind Eberhardt, all the way back to Nelson Rivera in 16th. Down to the bottom of this racetrack, so everybody thinks the high side's the place to be for grip, which at this stage in the race, as early as it is very surprising.
It's a little surprising, but the way that the tires wear off here at Charlotte, the cars just do not last very long around the bottom of the racetrack. The tires go away so quickly that you don't have the momentum coming off the corner that you can carry up here on this outside line. And this is what these guys have figured out, is that they can get up there and carry that speed off the corner and get a good run down the straightaway. The problem is, now that everybody's up there running it, where do you go once you have that momentum? You can try to go to the bottom, but you're not going to be able to carry the speed off the corner. It makes it very tricky, which is why we've seen David Comstock back here. You've mentioned that he restarted in 13th. He's only up to 10th right now. That's because everybody's migrated to the top of the racetrack. He has nowhere to go. And now Comstock's going to try the bottom of the racetrack here. He looks to the inside of the number 9 machine of Trevor Roppolo. Not going to be able to make it happen, though. You see he lost a ton of speed there and now falls back into the clutches of Lionel Callisto, who might make a charge at him for that 10th spot.
Almost a bit of reverse psychology there backfiring, which I think speaks to just how hard Comstock is trying to get around everybody, because it's just not working for the 42 machine right now. The speed is just not there for him.
Yeah, it's definitely seeming to be an issue for him, and this is a little bit of a unique situation for David Comstock, because normally he's really fast on the long runs and he can pick these guys off one at a time and make his way up through the field methodically. That's one of the things that he thrives on running here on Monday nights in the Full Throttle Cup Series, but right now he's really struggling with that because of the way the racing surface is working, and now he got a really bad run coming up off turn 4, and here comes Kalisto to the inside. He goes to the bottom of the racetrack and will take that 10th position away. Can he slide up in front of Comstock? It looks like he will, and Lionel Kalisto is going to move up inside the top 10. Now here comes Comstock with the crossover. He looks back to the inside as they head to 3.
Comstock trying to get the crossover, but again, it's just not there right now for the 42 machine, so he will drop back a position into the 11th place so long as Kalisto could throw the Bronc, which he didn't quite manage to do coming through the hex oval on the front straightaway. Might be able to drive it deep enough, though, to make it stick coming out of turn 2. Can Comstock keep the momentum up? No, and it won't matter because we have another yellow flag on the racetrack for the number 16 machine of Corey Wolf. As we roll through all of our cars here and see what exactly happened. Wolf stuck there on the bottom of the racetrack of the Marlboro Texaco Hippies paint shop machine. Not necessarily the kind of press that they would have wanted, but this all began when Wolf got into that outside retaining wall coming out of turn, I'd say the final little kink there of the front stretch. He just clipped it ever so slightly and then ran into trouble and didn't really run into anybody else or catch anybody else, but heavy damage to the 16 machine. His night is effectively over at this point.
Yeah, and unfortunately the 59 of Dakota Bowman also got caught up in that. He had nowhere to go when he was trying to check up for the wreck and just ran right into the side of Corey Wolf. So unfortunately it looks like his night is effectively over as well. And after that little bit of a green flag run, the field is bunched back up under yellow, and I believe we're about to see some pit stops here. It looks like everybody's going to come to pit road, and I have to believe that the call for most everybody here in this field is going to be 4 tires. I just can't imagine anybody going after 2 after that long of a green flag run, and it's going to be David Washington leading the field down with Andrew Freenars, Dylan Jones, and it looks like Nick Silver right behind him, Carl Shedd as well. These guys all on pit road looking for 4 fresh tires, and it looks like they're going to get into their boxes cleanly here. And now we're waiting to see, is anybody going to try to take 2 tires? Right now it looks like everybody's going for 4. The right sides are down on most of the cars on pit road, and now it's just a matter of who has the fastest pit crew, and here they're down and away, and it looks like David Washington's going to be a drag race. I believe maybe David Washington got it. It's going to be very close between him and the number 11 of Dylan Jones.
Really tight there, but Washington just got it. But you're right, Jones did manage to gain a position on pit road, got around Freenar, so moved the 11 car up a position to P2. Shedd was able to hold, and then Eberhardt was able to jump up a position because Nick Silver did not have a good stop at all. Is still on pit road for something, so I don't necessarily know what's happening with the 24 machine, but the track position he had is well and truly gone by a significant margin. Same, I think, can be said for Gabe Wood, who was running a little bit further down the racetrack, but some sort of major issue on pit road for the 24 machine that's knocked them pretty far back in the running order.
And this is not what you want to see if you are Nick Silver. He came into this race already on the outside of the top 8, which means he's already at a disadvantage moving forward. He can't afford to have a problem like this if he wants to be able to have an opportunity to move on to the next round. And now he's lost all of his track position. Nick Silver was sitting up inside the top 5 before this happened, whatever is going on with that 24 machine. Now he's sitting back outside of the top 20. Right now he's being shown in the 20th position. So he's going to have his work cut out for him in the second half of this race if he's going to get back to the front and be able to go after this thing and possibly get back to where he was running before this happened.
It'll be a lot of work now because I think as I look at this, he won't be any closer to the front of the field than about 20th, I'd say, somewhere in there. It's going to be really tough. I think he'll probably need some help and need some yellows. So, we'll just roll on here under yellow flag conditions, and hearing now that might have been a restroom break for Nick Silver. So nature called, I suppose, and was more important than getting good track position for Nick Silver, which is definitely understandable, but will cost him the track position, so he will have to work his way up through the front of this field. But the cautions have been intermittent enough, Brian, that I have a feeling he'll probably at least get a chance to make those spots back up.
Yeah, and I actually just radioed up to his crew chief and asked what was going on. And the driver number 24, he needed to make a bathroom stop. He had to hop out of that car real quick and go take care of some business there. But he's back in the car, buckled in, he's ready to go. And he knows that he had to give up a ton of track position, but this is his time to show how much speed is in that car. His crew chief said, "We're not concerned. We're going to get back up there and be a threat to win this thing before it's all said and done."
Which does not surprise me, because this has genuinely been one of the fastest cars he's had all season long. And I think he's gotten progressively better over the course of this season, but not too many nights like this night where he's really been able to contend. Restart, though, coming up here on lap 62. Washington leads, then Jones, Freenars, Shed, Eberhardt, Bowie, DeBarro, Rapolo, Comstock, Kalisto. Your top 10. Washington gets a good jump. Jones does too. Freenars does as well. Everybody in the top 6, really, in that Power Check Aegis Alliance, able to get off cleanly and make it happen. And behind them, Anthony DeBarro has risen above everybody else, as it was really, really tight there for Brandon Bowie. He nearly came down and pinched Trevor Rapolo and caused a huge wreck in the middle of the field, but they keep it spaced apart enough.
And I'll tell you what's really interesting is we have an incredible battle going on around that number 12 of Ross Cato. It's the way these guys are migrating to the bottom of the racetrack at the beginning of the run, then as the tires wear out, they move up. Right now, everybody's fighting for the bottom of the racetrack. That's the fastest way around here, but as these tires wear off, you're going to see once again them migrate to the top. And back to that battle with Ross Cato, he had a very scary moment battling back there with David Comstock and a couple of these other drivers, looks like Shane Ewing as well. He's managed to get away from that. He's now trying to work on the number 9 machine of Trevor Rapolo, trying to work his way closer to the top 5, as he's currently sitting in that 9th position, having a really solid run though. Just trying to work his way closer to the front. And you see David Comstock, he's struggling here as well, James. I believe he restarted in 9th and he's fallen back to 11th so far.
I get the sense that Andrew Freenars might have a little bit more speed than we've seen up to this point in the race, because he just clipped the apron coming out of turn 4, got underneath the white line, and really was sideways on corner exit in turn 4, nearly smacked the outside retaining wall, and within a lap, he's right back to the rear bumper of the 11 of Dylan Jones. So Freenar's really starting to push on now, and is going to go underneath the 11 machine, coming down the back straightaway. Might well just get second when they come around the next time by.
He's on the bottom of the racetrack trying to make it happen, but Jones is going to be able to carry some momentum off the top of the racetrack, and he gets cleared, gets away from Freenars, and now he has ran down to the back bumper of our race leader, David Washington. Can he do anything with it? Right now, the answer is no. Back to the bottom of the racetrack, but not close enough to be able to make a move. But that was an incredible job on the part of Dylan Jones there through 3 and 4. He pinched that number 88 machine down and was able to hold him off, and now DeBarro's making a move on Eberhardt for that 4th position. He's on the bottom of the racetrack trying to do the same thing that he saw in front of him, but Eberhardt's going to be able to carry that speed off the corner once again.
Side by side for the 4th position for a moment, but it wasn't enough for DeBarro to get around Eberhardt. We've seen those two race plenty of times this season already, and it's gone single file up through the, looks like 7th position, and then 8th is where it just goes absolutely nuts. You've got Trevor Rapolo, Ross Cato, David Comstock, Shane Ewing, Lionel Kalisto, Nick Silver, and Tanner Tallarico, all in some form of 2x2 racing here at Charlotte Motor Speedway, and it doesn't look like it's about to let up anytime soon.
Absolutely not, as these guys stay double file here. David Comstock, Ross Cato are bunching it up right now. Comstock's trying to carry that speed on the outside line. He's able to get clear of Ross Cato. Now he's going to try to set his sights on the number 9 of Trevor Rapolo. Meanwhile, Ross Cato right behind him now is trying to fend for his life here on the bottom of the racetrack, as these guys are starting to migrate closer to the outside line once again. And Kalisto is going to make that move and be able to get around him. And now here comes Shane Ewing to the outside as well, trying to take it. And while all this is going on, we have a battle for 3rd, as Andrew Freenars is battling with his teammate Daniel Eberhardt here off turn 2.
Where do you look? You've got so many battles here up in the top 10. You've got Freenars, who's able to hold his spot off from Eberhardt. DeBarro's come through this field like a madman and now has just managed to clear Brandon Bowie and Carl Shed. So DeBarro now going to try and go hunting down another spot. Next on the list is Eberhardt in fourth. And then just behind that, you've got Trevor Roppolo and David Comstock and Lionel Callisto trying to battle it out.
There are battles everywhere, all the way around this racetrack right now. It's some of the most incredible racing I think we've seen on here in quite a while, and these guys just continue to put on the show. Comstock trying to carry the momentum on the outside line, just not quite able to get there. This is a really good battle as he's trying to sneak to the outside of Trevor Roppolo as they get to one. Looks like he's going to be able to get there. Can he carry the momentum through the middle of the corner to stay on his outside? It looks like he's going to be able to, and now as they come off turn 2, there's almost a moment, and he's able to squeeze the car up in between the wall and the number 9 machine, and that's going to allow him to have the momentum now and possibly the position. Looks like he will indeed clear Roppolo for that 8th position now.
He wasn't there by much, but he was there by just enough to get the nose up there. Roppolo could not get the car up fast enough to block, and David Comstock, who's been trying to charge his way back towards the front of the field after that second restart, which went really poorly for him, now up in the highest position he's been in this event since that restart, now back up to the 8th position.
Starting to make his way closer to the front, and it looks like everything's starting to settle down up here inside the top 10 as these guys are beginning to get just a little spread out. So it looks like these guys have finally decided they want to take it easy for a couple of laps and catch their breath, so to speak, because I know it's been some action-packed racing. You'd almost think we were already at Talladega the way these guys have been all over each other, but that's for next week. So right now these guys are just going to continue to go after it here, but I really like the job that Anthony DeBarro has done. You mentioned how he has charged up through the field, James. He started back in that 22nd position. He's up in the 5th position right now, and he's looking like he's got a really fast car here. Maybe one of the only guys that can get up there and challenge those 4 pink cars that are up in front of him right now.
While the field has settled down for just a moment, since we've already gone ahead and done it and crossed the halfway point of tonight's race, it's time for tonight's iRacing Midway Race Break, which is brought to you by iRacing, the leading online racing simulation. Developed from the beginning as a centralized racing and competition service, iRacing organizes, hosts, and officiates races on virtual tracks all around the world. In the fast-paced world of esports, iRacing is a one-stop shop for online racing, with officially sanctioned racing from NASCAR, IndyCar, IMSA, the World of Outlaws, the Cars Tour, the VLN Endurance Championship, Blancpain GT, V8 Supercars, and more. David Washington is your leader in this race, but not by much. He's got pressure from Dylan Jones, who sits second. Andrew Freenar's also under pressure in the spot. Well, never mind. How about Daniel Eberhardt up to third? He just cleared Andrew Freenar's. Anthony DeBarro in the 4th spot. Brandon Bowie currently sits in 5th. Carl Shed, well, take that back. DeBarro up to 5th. Bowie to 6th. Shed to 7th as they keep bouncing positions around here. David Comstock currently sits 8th. Trevor Roppolo 9th, and then Lionel Callisto 10th as they run.
11th goes to Ross Cato. Then we have Shane Ewing in 12th. Nick Silver, he's rebounded nicely so far. Actually, the position has just changed. He's going to move to 12th. He's going to move Tanner Tallarico up to 13th, and Shane Ewing will fall all the way back to 14th. Nelson Rivera sits in the 15th position. Then we have John Abbott in 16th. Sean Casto is 17th. Gabe Wood is 18th. 19th goes to Bruce Pearson. And rounding out the top 20, Doug Roths is 20th.
Austin Coop, first car, more than one lap down in this case. Well, take that back. Doug Roth just became the first car lap down in 20th. Coop is 2 laps down in 21st. 8 laps down is Douglas Wyatt in 27th. The rest of these cars out of the race with trouble early. Corey Wolf, Dakota Bowman, and Sean Boundy running 23rd, 24th, and 25th, respectively. And that concludes tonight's iRacing Midway Race Break. For more information on the wide variety of sim racing possibilities online, visit iRacing.com to sign up today. For a limited time, you can visit iRacing.com/World of Outlaws and take advantage of exclusive promo codes to get yourself on the sim with a 1-year membership for half the price. Once again, that's iRacing.com/World of Outlaws. Lap 79 currently on the board here at Charlotte as they work to complete that. And Washington will do that to move us to lap 80 of 125. So starting to get down to it here. 46 laps to go as they run. Jones has backed the pressure off just a little bit on his teammate. Eberhardt, though, is coming now up to third, and he's bringing Anthony DeBarro with him, who just got around Andrew Farinas. And DeBarro, if he can keep this car clean and in one piece, is your easy winner of the Hard Charger Award for this evening. Started in the 22nd position. Didn't even take a qualifying time, and he's up to fourth.
We have a battle for the lead going on right now as Dylan Jones has ramped that pressure back up, and he's to the inside of David Washington, and looks like he's going to take the position. He slides up in front of David Washington, and on lap number 81, Dylan Jones goes to the race lead, and now he's going to try to set sail on this field as he tries to pull away from David Washington. Daniel Eberhardt's right behind these guys as well, and as you just mentioned, he's bringing Anthony DeBarro along with him. You can almost throw a blanket over this top five right now, James, as they are separated by less than 0.6 of a second right now. These guys are all over one another, and this has been a fairly long run, so to see these guys this close after this long of a run is really impressive.
Really exciting. I'm not necessarily certain that Washington liked it either, because he almost gave Dylan Jones a huge shot on the rear bumper going into turn 3. So Washington might be losing the handle on this car again, and that's been a theme over these past few races. He's had good short run speed and good mid run speed, but when these cars fall off and we get towards the end of these green flag runs, the 98 car hasn't quite had the speed of some of the drivers around him, and that's usually when he started to fade in these races, and it looks like that might be happening here because Jones is opening up a gap on him and Eberhardt is closing back up to him.
Yeah, but Eberhardt's got bigger things to worry about right now. One of his closest rivals, Anthony DeBarro, is right on his back bumper trying to carry the speed off the outside line to try to make a run on him for that third position. He's got to look out at his mirror as much as he's looking out the windshield just to make sure that he doesn't have a challenge. And now DeBarro has a challenge from Andrew Farinas to the inside of him now, battling for that fourth and fifth position. Farinas trying to get his way back to the front. He was running as high as third on this green flag run, but now he's fallen back to the fifth position, so he's trying to get closer to the front again. But just not quite able to make that move, and that's going to allow DeBarro once again to try to set his sights on that number 90 machine, as Eberhardt now has closed right in on the back bumper of David Washington, and like you mentioned, James, it looks like those tires are starting to fade on number 98 machine.
So then the battle that you have to watch is Eberhardt and Washington. Here comes the 90 machine down the back straightaway once again, working lap 85. Will he try something going into turn 3? No. Washington will drive it in really, really deep and then slide up the hill in the middle of the corner, and that may open up the door here for Daniel Eberhardt to make something happen, maybe in turns 1 and 2 perhaps. Won't quite be there yet, but he's closing and it'll be close.
Absolutely, as these guys continue to get closer and closer to one another, and look at this lead that Dylan Jones has been able to gap on these guys in just a short period of time. He's out by over half a second now over David Washington, who's in second, and you have to believe now at this point David Washington might be holding these guys up behind them. Not that he should pull over for them, but he's certainly keeping them from being able to progress forward and possibly keep up with Dylan Jones, and that's going to be frustrating for Daniel Eberhardt and Anthony DeBarro, and you have to imagine that at some point they're going to begin getting just a little impatient, which may mean they might get a little more aggressive than they'd like to be, even though it is, especially in Eberhardt's case, with a teammate or somebody that he works with on a regular basis. It could become something where he's going to have to get aggressive because he has to try to go for the win to try to help himself out in this situation.
So Washington now playing the role that Ross Cato did about 40 laps ago with a lot of the drivers back towards the back half of the top 10, and that he's stacking everybody up behind him. And you've got 3 cars in Eberhardt, DeBarro, and Farinas that are definitely faster than the 98 machine, but they just haven't found a way to get around him yet. And now they're sacrificing time to Dylan Jones, which wouldn't necessarily matter if we knew we were going to have a caution at some point here. But here comes Daniel Eberhardt to pit road, and that will start shaking things out. Nick Silver, I think, follows him as well.
And this is your first of scheduled pit stops here under green flag, as you see As you see Daniel Eberhardt, Nick Silver on pit road here, trying to get the clean pit stop down here on pit road. This is where you have to have your money stop because you're under green. You can't afford to give up tenths of a second here on pit road, and it looks like Eberhardt in that number 90 machine is going to have a clean stop. He's down and away. Nick Silver as well now. He's gotten his 4 tires in service, and he is back out onto the racetrack, and now we wait to see if any of the other leaders are going to make their way to pit road. It looks like David Comstock now is on pit road as well.
Hands are being forced. So now the question becomes, when does Dylan Jones come in? When does David Washington come in? We may have answers to that here in a few laps. They're not coming in at this stage, but Jones has really started to make that gap just massive over the 98 machine. I think if you're Washington, especially with the way your tires are falling off, you have to come in now if you want any chance to save this race.
If you look at the difference in lap times here, David Washington, who's still on the racetrack, is running 29.34 second laps, and we're actually waiting for the scoring to update from when our other leaders have come to pit road, when Eberhardt gets around this time by. But to put it into perspective, in practice, these guys are running 27.12s as a fast pace. That's over a 2-second difference from where they're at right now. And as Eberhardt comes across, he ran a 27.8 that time by compared to the 29.32 that David Washington ran. That's how much time he's giving up right now. He can't afford to stay out here too much longer. Along with Dylan Jones, these guys are giving up an insurmountable amount of time. And with less than 35 laps in this race, I don't think this is a good call. I think I'd want to get my tires, be on strategy with everybody else, and make sure that I can go on offense at the end of this thing.
And how much offense can you put on the end of this thing? And I think for Washington in particular, if you get tires now, yes, you'll be able to get back to the speeds that you were running, but what do you have at the end of this race? And what do you give up in speed at the end of this race, especially if it goes green the rest of the way? And how much are you willing to make the rear bumper of that 98 just wider than a 747 to try and hang on to position?
Well, it's certainly something that he's going to have to try to do at this point because he's losing a lot of time, not only to the leader, but to these guys that are still out here behind him. Anthony DeBarro is getting closer and closer to his bumper. Andrew Freenars is right there. You've got Carl Shedd beginning to close into this picture as well. He's losing time to the guys on fresh tires, but he's also losing time to the guys that are on the same strategy as him. And I have to believe you have to block, like you just mentioned. You have to make that car wide and try to hold these guys off as they begin to catch you, because you can't afford to give up those positions as well, because eventually you're going to come back to pit road. You want to be ahead of them when you come out. That way you don't have to worry about trying to pass them as well as all the guys that are on older tires.
You would think, with conventional thinking, that's the case, but we've seen stranger things happen here at Charlotte, and we've seen guys get into it as we get Anthony DeBarro down pit road, and it looks like he'll be joined by Trevor Rapolo. So, and then something happened to DeBarro. I missed it. I think he might have locked the brakes up on pit entry there, and we'll take a look at the replay here and see what happened, but that is exactly what happened. He locked the front brakes up coming into pit road and looped the car around. No damage to the 99, but that's a whole heap of track position that he just gave up and time he gave up, and that may well have just killed his chances to win this race.
And these are the types of mistakes that you just cannot have. And to add insult to injury, he might have been caught speeding when that happened as well, because he crossed that line well over 50 miles an hour. I believe he was at about 70 when he crossed that stripe. Looks like he was, 67 when he crossed the pit road commitment line. So a very good chance he might have got caught speeding. On top of that, looks like indeed he will not, though, because he's already gotten his service and he is down and away. So he got away with one somehow, but unfortunately he gave up at least 10 seconds on pit road because of that, and unfortunately without the help of a caution, I do believe that's going to take Anthony DeBarro out of contention in this race, even though he's going to have fresher tires. And now we have our race leader Dylan Jones on pit road, David Washington right behind him as well.
So Jones and Washington teammates come in on pit road, and I think we'll begin to really start seeing what happens from here on out as far as tire strategy goes, as far as long green flag run strategy goes. And then, of course, there's also the possibility that we get a yellow flag that completely throws everything that I just said out the window. So that could go a lot of ways, but as it stands, Jones maintains his gap, maybe extends it even a little bit over Washington as they come out of pit road. Pretty good pit stop there from the 11 machine.
and a big mistake on part of David Washington. He overshot his pit box during that round of pit stops, had to back up, and then he didn't get positioned right away, and he had to adjust the car just a little bit more. He lost a crazy amount of time on pit road as well. So for a couple of our front runners, they just had some disastrous times on pit road. And for David Washington, this is not something you need because you're in the playoffs. Anthony DeBarro, it hurts his chances at winning, but he's not racing for a championship. David Washington, this could potentially hurt his chances. He's got a big gap right now, but a bad race here could potentially hurt his chances to move on to the next round.
Could. You don't want to screw yourself up too much by taking a gamble on tires, but that happens to be exactly what our race leader is doing. Shane Ewing, who just snuck into the round of 12 last week at Dover, was the last man to get in on points, is currently scored as your race leader because he has not come down for tires yet, and I get the sense that he is trying to extend this green flag run as long as he possibly can in the hopes that we might get a yellow flag and it might give him the chance to pit and lose not as much track position, which is an interesting thought. We'll just have to see how far he can press that car.
Well, if he can catch a caution after 7 or 8 laps, all of these drivers are going to come back to pit road, which is going to take all of your front runners that have been out front all race long, your Dylan Jones, your Andrew Freenars, David Washington, all these guys, they're not going to be up front anymore. They're going to have to come in and get 4 fresh tires, but more than likely they will be outside the top 5, maybe outside the top 10. As right now, the highest running one of those drivers is Dylan Jones in 9th. He's 25 seconds behind. He's going to have his work cut out for him to get back to the front, but if a caution comes out, he has no choice but to come back to pit road, and that will definitely shake this thing up. And Shane Ewing would love to see that happen because it'd give him an opportunity to possibly get a win and move on to the next round.
Shane Ewing currently scored as a race leader. Sean Casto in second. Bruce Pearson in the third spot. And if you're wondering who the first driver is of the folks that have already come down pit road, that honor belongs to the number 90 machine of Daniel Eberhardt, who was one of the first to come down pit road. He is currently ahead of Nick Silver by about 4 seconds. So if we go green the rest of the way, it may well be Eberhardt and Silver racing for the race lead, and David Comstock would be third in that bunch, and he's only about a second behind Nick Silver, so starting to shake up very interestingly, especially if we don't get a yellow flag here within the next few laps.
Well, and I was just burning up my calculator here just a moment ago, and I was looking at the numbers, and when we went back green flag racing on lap 62, that left us with 63 laps to go. Now, I don't know for sure what the fuel window is, James Pike, but that could be on the outside edge of the fuel window, which could mean Shane Ewing might try to stick it out and see if he can't run this thing the distance. I don't necessarily think that's going to win the race for him, but it could certainly give him a pretty good finish if he can make it to the end without having to come back to pit road.
If he can make it to the end and if he can hang on to the race lead, but that's not looking likely because Daniel Eberhardt and company are really starting to reel in these folks. Within the past few laps, that lead has gone down by the tune of about 1.5 seconds per lap, and Eberhardt just knocked off about another 1.5 seconds that last time by. It's now down to 8.3 seconds, the gap from Ewing to Eberhardt, who is the first on fresh tires and fuel. Sean Casto and Bruce Pearson are within that bubble. Pearson probably is about to get passed by Eberhardt within the next few moments. So I believe he already has. Yes, Eberhardt has already cleared Pearson. So Eberhardt now up to the third position.
Yeah, I don't think this is going to be a call that will win the race for Shane Ewing, but it'll certainly give him an opportunity to maybe come away with in this race with a top 5 finish, which being where he's at in the points would be huge for him right now. Because as you mentioned, he was the last guy to skate through in the round of 16, or into this round of 12. He's currently sitting back in the 11th position in points coming into tonight's race. This would be a huge gap for him to be able to make up if he can even just stay inside the top 5, which would be something that he might be able to take advantage of later on in this race. And he has backed his lap times up in a crazy amount. He's not running full throttle down the straightaway, so I can confirm now he's trying to save fuel to make it to the end. He's backing this thing way off now, just trying to coast around here at this point.
Just trying to coast and save it. Casto, I think, doing something relatively similar because The gap between he and Shane Ewing has stabilized at 3 seconds for the last handful of laps, though Casto did cut it down a little bit, now down to 2.8. But more importantly, Eberhardt's got the gap down to 4, and the next 4 guys behind Daniel Eberhardt just went under the 10-second mark on Shane Ewing in some way, shape, or form. So the fresh tires and the fuel are coming here as we get down to it. 17 laps to go here at this stage.
And we are having a little bit of a battle going on back here with Nick Silver as he just got passed by the number 11 of Dylan Jones. So he's going to move up into that 4th position. And he also got around, Dylan Jones did around David Comstock as well. So the fresh tires for these drivers are giving them an opportunity to run some pretty quick lap times. And it's certainly going to give them some of their track position back. But I don't know if they're going to have time to make up 7 seconds to not only the leader, but about 6 seconds to Daniel Eberhardt. Dylan Jones is running some really fast lap times right now. Eberhardt just ran a 28.89, and as Dylan Jones came across the stripe, he ran a 28.29. So he's running about a half a second quicker. I don't think that's going to be enough to get him to Eberhardt to give him an opportunity to win this race, but he's certainly going to make a charge out of here in the last 15 laps.
Can the charge be enough? Can it get him to the front of the field? And can you get around Eberhardt, who is really coming now? It's now down to car lengths. It's underneath a second as they cross the stripe. 8/10 this time by. So Eberhardt here within the next lap or 2 should have the race lead. Might even be on the lap that we're on right now as they come down the back straightaway. Eberhardt dives it off into 3. Ewing won't even challenge. Daniel Eberhardt now to the race lead here on lap 112.
And as he crosses the stripe to officially take that lead, I don't think there was any question he was going to get to the 32. The 32's in fuel conservation mode, just trying to make it home now with about 12 laps remaining in this race. But now the big question becomes, can Dylan Jones get there? He's 2.4 seconds behind here, and he is running some really fast lap times. He's cut that gap down in a hurry. He might actually have something for this 90 machine before it's all said and done, James, as he's trying to get there right now. And we have a battle going on with the 42 of David Comstock. It looks like he's trying to chase down the number 24 of Nick Silver here off turn 4.
Tried to chase down Nick Silver and then just caught him in the absolute worst place in the exit of turn 4, and Silver was just right up in that high line that people love to swing out into on corner exit. Killed the momentum of the 42, so he had to back it up 2 to 3 car lengths, but does have enough laps, I think, to try and take another go at it. And by the way, if you're wondering, up towards the front of the field, Dylan Jones is now coming. Now only a few car lengths back behind Daniel Eberhardt here. It's 1.2 seconds, so we thought Eberhardt was in control of this race, but it might not be over yet. Dylan Jones may have just timed this perfectly if he hits his marks in the final 11 laps.
And you know who has to be really upset about this right now is David Washington, because he came to pit road at the exact same time as Dylan Jones, but had that mistake on pit road, and as a result, he's 4 seconds behind this upcoming battle. He could have been in the middle of this battle if he didn't have that mistake on pit road. He's sitting in the 7th position right now. Still a good night for him, but it's going to be a night of what could have been for that number 98 machine, unfortunately, because unless we get a caution, I just don't think he's going to have time to get there. But this gap is now close to within half a second now, James, as Dylan Jones is carrying that momentum on the outside line, and he is right there as they come off turn 4.
What sort of fight do you put up, and what sort of fight can you put up if you're Daniel Eberhardt? With the older tires, there might not be much he can do, and I don't even think he'll fight it. And it will be Dylan Jones who goes underneath Eberhardt and to the race lead here on lap 117. And outside of a yellow flag, that might just do it unless we have any sort of mistakes. This should be Dylan Jones' race to win from here on out.
And what an incredible drive we just saw out of that number 11 machine. We were questioning these guys staying out on the racetrack longer than everybody else. We weren't sure if it was going to work out for him. And for Dylan Jones, he's just shut up everybody that was questioning him, because he has made a charge and went to the race lead here. And he's just got an incredible fast car right now, trying to hang in here and see if he can get this race over with and get his win here in the playoffs. And we have a battle going on with the number 24 machine here, I'm hearing, as he's being chased down by Carl Shed, and it looks like David Comstock as well.
Shane Ewing now falling like a stone through the field as all these fresh tire drivers have caught up to him. I think the yellow flags needed to fall about 10 laps later than they actually did. Otherwise, he would have timed it perfectly. But as it stands, still should be a decent finish. Looks like it'll be near the top 10 for him, but it won't be the run that I think he was hoping for when he made that strategy call. The best action, though, on track at the moment, though, belongs to Nick Silver and Carl Shedd and David Comstock, who are 5th and 6th and 7th in this race, all running together. The 45 and the 24 side by side at the moment as they go into turn 1.
And they continue to battle for this position. Carl Shedd looks like he's going to inch ahead, and indeed he will. So move Carl Shedd up into that 5th position. He was able to make the bottom of the racetrack work, and he's able to get ahead of that number 24 McDonald's Ford, and he's going to try to drive away now as we get inside 5 laps to go. And now, can David Comstock possibly do anything with Nick Silver? He's right behind him, about 3 or 4 car lengths behind him on the racetrack. Has an opportunity, just not sure if he's got the car to do it. He has just not had any long run speed tonight, and now you almost have to wonder, is David Comstock in trouble with the number 1 of Tanner Tallarico, because Tanner's right there as well trying to chase these guys down, and he's got help or got some people right behind him with Trevor Roppolo in that 9 machine.
Comstock's been driving that car harder in the last handful of laps than I've seen him drive that car arguably all season long. It's been getting right up on the edge of the wall, and I can't tell if that's him just trying to squeeze every last ounce of speed out of that car, or if the handling on the number 42 is actually suffering, in which case I think he has to be worried, because Tallarico's right there trying to get underneath him here as they come down the back straight.
I think it's a little bit of both on that 42 machine. He was one of the first drivers to come to pit road, and the guys that he's racing around now are guys that waited a lot longer to come to pit road, about 5, 6, 7 laps longer than him, and now those fresher tires are really starting to play into their advantage. But he has to try to defend with 3 laps to go. He can't afford to give up these spots, because 1 point could be the difference between making it to the round of 8 and sitting and watching the other guys race for it.
And especially with Talladega looming in this round as they go 3 wide down the back straightaway. If you didn't want any action at the end of the race, how about this battle for the 5th, 6th, 7th position all in there, and it gets absolutely crazier from there. A little bit further up the field, you've got Andrew Farinars now trying to get around Daniel Eberhardt, so the tires fading on that 90 machine, and he slips back another position. But at the very front end of this, Dylan Jones will come out of turn 4 to come get the white flag here at Charlotte.
He's just got 1.5 miles left to go, and he's going to claim a victory here at the Charlotte Motor Speedway. Nobody behind him, 3.5 seconds out to the next guy. Just he needs a mistake-free couple of corners here, and he's going to get a win.
Down the back straight, has had a really, really fast car, and I think the most consistent speed out of anyone here in the field. And he will come off of turn 4 and collect his 5th win of the season to go tied with David Washington and David Comstock at the top of the RSR leaderboard. He wins the fall race at Charlotte and books his place in the round of 8. And the RealSimRacing.com Full Throttle Cup Series presented by Gary Mercer Trucking 2017 playoffs.
What an incredible drive for that number 11 machine. Using the fresher tires, he had to be very patient working his way around all of those cars that were on older tires. Couldn't make any mistakes when he was passing those guys, because if he caught one of them at the wrong place and got into their back bumper, he could have destroyed his own car, and also took a couple of those guys out. Did an incredible job waiting for it to come to him, and now he's burning it down on the front stretch. He's locked into the round of 8, as you mentioned, James, and he gets to go to Talladega stress-free next week.
What a privilege to not have to worry about what will happen at the 2 2/3 mile super speedway down in Alabama. He's so happy he just tore up the rear end of his car during the burnouts. So I'd say if that's any indication, that tells you just how much it means to Dylan Jones. And we will talk to the driver of the number 11 machine, as well as your top 3 finishers on the other side of this commercial break. You are watching coverage of the RSR.com Full Throttle Cup Series presented by Gary Mercer Trucking on LSRTV, your home for sim racing. Welcome back to coverage of the RealSimRacing.com Full Throttle Cup Series presented by Gary Mercer Trucking here on LSRTV, your home for sim racing. We've wrapped up the 29th race of 36 in the 2017 season. Dylan Jones has won his 5th race of the year here at Charlotte in the 2nd race of the season in the Queen City to round out its pair of races for this season. And at this point, we'll go ahead and take a look at tonight's full field rundown, which is brought to you by Joel Real Timing, the official timing software of LSRTV. Whether you spend your time on the sim, behind the wheel, on the pit box, or from the spotter stand, JRT is the go-to software for iRacing timing and scoring analytics. You can get yourself a basic download for free or get the pro version today at joel-real-timing.com. 5 wins on the year for Dylan Jones. He goes level with David Comstock and David Washington for the most wins by one driver in the 2017 season. Andrew Farinars will finish second and hope to go one better next week, which, if you remember, he did at Talladega in the spring, won that race, so he'll be looking forward to adventures down in Alabama 1 week from now. Daniel Everhart pitted just a little bit earlier than everybody else at the front of the field, and the tires faded away late. Still comes home with a strong 3rd place finish. David Washington had the pit road mistake, overshot his box, and might have been racing for the win otherwise, but will have to settle for 4th. Carl Shedd with strong speed all night, a top 5 car all night, and gets a well-deserved 5th place finish there. A season's best, I believe, for Tanner Tallarico, who comes home in 6th. Trevor Roppolo, a top 10 once again in the 7th spot. Nick Silver finished 8th and was mixing it up towards the front of the field all night long. David Comstock got thrown back on that one restart early on in this race and never could quite recover the top 5 position that he had. Finishes 9th. Brandon Bowie rounds out your top 10 tonight at Charlotte.
In the 11th position, Nelson Rivera comes home P11. Lionel Callisto spent much of this race up inside the top 10, but just was not able to finish there. He'll come home in the 12th position. Ross Cato will finish 13th. And then Anthony DeBarro having that spin on pit road under green flag. He was trying to come down to get his service done, and he just didn't quite get the car load up. He's going to finish 14th after that mistake. And then Gabe Wood will finish in the 15th position. John Abbott will be the 16th driver here tonight, and he was the last guy to finish on the lead lap. Then we had Bruce Pearson finish 17th. 18th went to Shane Ewing. Doug Roth comes home 19th. Then we have 20th going to Sean Casto. And then the rest of these drivers were multiple laps down and already out of the race for the evening. Austin Coop finishes 21st, 51 laps down. 22nd goes to Douglas Wyatt. Corey Wolf will finish 23rd. 24th will go to Dakota Bowman. And Sean Bounty will round out your 25-car field here tonight at the Charlotte Motor Speedway. And James, you've just caught up with one very, very excited driver. He gets to go to Talladega next week with no worries of points, and Dylan Jones is your winner here tonight, and you're down in victory lane with him.
Now that we have cleared our Joel Real Timing full field rundown, it is indeed time to talk to the winner of tonight's race, which is, as you said, Brian Macklin, the driver of the number 11 machine for Aegis Motorsports, Dylan Jones, who gets it done with a very, very strong run here at Charlotte tonight. So, Dylan Jones getting it done, making it happen. And Dylan, you, I think, had more consistent speed than anybody else. I think that's the one thing that jumps out to me when I think about this race and the way it panned out, that you were up there in the top 3, 4, 5 for a good chunk of this, and then it seemed like most of the drivers around you fell off towards the back end of green flag runs, and you were the one guy who had the speed to go all the way through a green flag run and be fast throughout, and I think that might be what got you the win tonight.
And that was the game plan too tonight. Coming in here during practice and stuff, I set up a game plan on what I wanted to do and almost the laps that I was going to do it on for saving tires and when I needed to go, where I needed to run on the track even. And at the beginning of the race, it just wasn't working out. We were getting cautions every 15 to 20 laps. And just when it was starting to come in, I mean, I needed a full fuel run and I felt like I had everyone covered. And thankfully at the end of that, we got those long runs and I was able to show what I had planned all week.
So that really was more of a setup thing, and at this point, it doesn't totally surprise me at this stage, but did you, I think, coming into this, think it was going to play out exactly to plan as it seems like it did? Or did you have a few more doubts in the setup and you thought it was going to be good, but you weren't quite sure how it was going to play out in context of the race?
I thought we'd get green runs all week in practice. I mean, the racing's been really good here lately. At the start of the race, I started to have my doubts and started to worry a little bit, and maybe I need to change up my game plan and go a little bit harder. But I just stuck to my guns there, and it paid off.
And Mr. Macklin's already made a point of this a few times in the broadcast, but we'll bring it up to you directly. To be able to go to Talladega next week and not have to worry about your finishing position no matter what, because you're in the round of 12 and you've made it to the round of 8 now too with the victory. Can you put into words how massive that is for you in this 11 team?
Oh, that's huge, especially going to Talladega, a big-time wild card. But that was going into Chicago and going into here all week. It's probably the most I practice all season is for those 2 races, just knowing that that puts me in for the next few races till we get to the next round, and you don't have to worry, stress out. It's just easy sailing till we get to the next round.
And when we make it to Talladega, I know there are a lot of people that will be supporting you every step of the way. So go ahead and give your shout-outs and your thank yous and your recognition to all the people that make it happen for you and for this number 11 team.
Thanks to Julio for putting the Aegis team, Dave for running some practice laps with me again this week, everyone on the Aegis team. We all work great together, and everyone at RSR and Live Sim Racing for putting this all on.
Well, thank you for your time, Dylan, and congratulations on your 5th win of 2017. And we will see you 1 week from tonight down in Alabama.
Yeah, thank you.
There's Dylan Jones, winner of tonight's race, and from there we'll slide back to pit road where Brian Macklin has caught up with the driver of the number 88 machine, Andrew Freenars.
Indeed, I have Andrew Freenars down here on pit road. You finished 2nd here tonight at Charlotte. You came up 1 position shy of being able to guarantee yourself a spot into the round of 8, but a great run here tonight, finishing 2nd, certainly sets you up for having a solid chance at making it into the next round. Take us through your night.
Yeah, surprised myself getting a pole time there. Real nice having that first pit stall. I thought we had something for the win there till Dave got by, and Dave just able to pull us away. Dylan got to our back bumper. He was able to save tires better, and once we had that green flag pit stop, he just was able to stay in front of me, saved his tires better, and ran down Daniel. Minus Dylan there, I think we had a really good car, but probably top 3, so we finished where we should have.
And you guys, everybody at Aegis had an incredible night here tonight as you guys swept the top 5 positions. Talk about what it's like as a team to be able to just have that much speed and that much momentum now that the playoffs have kicked off. We've gotten through the round of 16 and into the round of 12 now. What's it like having a team that you know can just fire off every single week and have fast cars for everybody?
Especially this week, I could tell you, everyone helped me. Big shout out to Carl. When we first got here, I think I was 5/10 off the pace qualifying, and he sat down one-on-one, really helped me out, probably an hour of practice. Dave's always there with a question. If you ever need to kind of learn lines, he's always there to help. Dylan's the same way. Daniel's always there. Gio was always there to run practice. Everyone on this team, it's so nice to have, if you're struggling, everyone's there, open book. They'll tell you everything you need to know. So, this team, we're capable of doing this every week. Top 5s every week, sweeping it. But, yeah.
Well, in any other interview, I'd have to sit here and say, well, you're going to Talladega next week. Aren't you a little nervous about that? But you won the spring race at Talladega. You got to feel pretty confident heading into there next week. Maybe go out there and sweep the races at Talladega and guarantee yourself a spot in the round of 8 next week.
Yeah, especially with this team. We have really good teamwork, and it should play a factor next week. I remember last Talladega, that was a heck of a finish. I got lucky. I got spun there in the last lap, and I was able to save it. But, yeah, I'm looking forward to there. Hopefully just kind of have a nice, clean race. If we're there for a win, we'll try to get it. But if not, just get a solid top 5, try to make that round 8.
Well, we look forward to seeing what you're able to do next week at Talladega, but for now, we got to give you an opportunity to say thank you to your sponsors and say hi to any friends or family that might be watching. Who makes it happen for on the number 88 machine there, Andrew?
Yeah, big thanks to LSRTV. Do a great job broadcasting every week. All my friends and family. Steve did a great job on the box. He's just come over recently and really helped me out. Big shout out to Sean. He's been a supporter for a while. My brother for building a computer to run the sim. It ain't possible without him. My dad, my grandpa, my mom, really all my friends and family. And like I said, everyone on this Aegis team, they're the greatest. Andy, who does the paints every week, to Dave, always there with a question, and Carl. Gio did some spotting tonight as well. Just everybody on this Aegis team.
Well, congrats on your good run here tonight, and good luck next week at Talladega, Andrew.
Thanks so much, guys. Look forward to it.
That was Andrew Friedar. He finished second here tonight at the Charlotte Motor Speedway. He's going to look to try to sweep Talladega when they head there next week. And James, I understand you've gotten out of some of the champagne that was being showered all over you, and you've caught up with our third-place finisher here tonight, Daniel Eberhardt.
Daniel Eberhardt comes home in the 3rd position this evening, and it was definitely close for you, Daniel. I think you probably would have liked to see this race end about 10 laps earlier than it did, but as it stands, even with the pit strategy, all in all, a pretty solid night for you in this number 90 team.
Yeah, it was a pretty solid night, just all around for Aegis tonight, and saving tires was a big thing, and then the outside, I guess, they put that, grip up there like they do in real life. I don't know what was up this week about that, but if you were on the outside, you just could not, the low guy could not pass anybody. So finally, I just had to do it all on pit strategy. And either I was hoping for a caution once I got the lead, or I was hoping that Dylan would run out of tires. But pitting 10 laps before Dylan or Andrew really hurt me. I should have pitted probably with about 5 laps or 3 laps sooner if I could go back. But that's the point of it, and we'll go on to next week and see what we got.
So you had the chance at the victory. It's not quite there, and now we go to Talladega next. Are you worried about the potential of something happening there any more than normal with the playoff pressure, or are you looking at your very, very impressive run of form as of late? One finish outside the top 10 here in your last 6 starts. And are you thinking more of that and saying we can go to any track on any Monday night and be successful because we've got the speed in our car?
I don't know. I mean, Talladega is a crapshoot. We all know that, but anybody that knows me, I say this every time Talladega comes into play. I love plate racing. Plate racing is anybody's race. You put 30 of us out on the racetrack, from 30 to first is about 2 seconds. It's something anybody can win, and you never know. It could be one of us that won it from Aegis. It could be Nick Silver, David Comstock. It could be, anybody. It gets the little guy a hand, and it gives the top-notch driver a hand. It just is. It's such a even level with the draft and everything. But then you got to be watching out and be ready for the big one. You got to have your dodging shoes on for that one, because you're going to end up having a big wreck. And I'm pretty excited for it. But all in all, just this season has been up and down for us at Aegis, but we've been doing the best we can, and we work hard for what we do.
And I know the list is long. I know there are plenty of people on it. So as best as you can, here's your chance to touch on everybody that makes it happen for you and this number 90 team. Who do you need to thank for the run tonight?
I got to thank Dave, Andy, Dylan, Ross, Carl, Trevor, Andrew, Steve, just everybody who makes it possible. It's just fun racing with these guys. And like Andrew, I'll go off on that a little bit. Andrew said that, we work hard and everything, and we're such an open book. And that's to anybody. I mean, anybody that knows us, we're not the most liked people around here. And it's kind of downing, but we never made ourselves like this. And we just want, we're open to anybody and helping anybody. And we love to help people. And that's mostly what we're about. And that's why our team's, so big. But, it's fun running with these guys each and every week, and I got to thank my beautiful girlfriend and for everything she does and all the support she gives me in anything I do. The good Lord above, because for him, if it wasn't for him, nothing would be possible. And you guys each and every week for putting on this great show and taking over our RSR and doing what y'all do now. And just we'll go on to these upcoming weeks and see what we got and try to make it to the round of 8 and go on to through that round and see if we can make it to the round of 4.
Well, many thanks to you for your time tonight. Daniel, congrats on the 3rd place finish, and we will see you 1 week from tonight down in Talladega.
I sure hope so.
So there are your top 3 finishers, and as we wrap up our interviews, we can reveal to you the unofficial point standings down around the cut line, which are notable. I think we start with Carl Shedd, who sits in 5th spot. He is currently 12 points to the good. Then Andrew Farinars is 9 points clear. Trevor Roppolo is 4 points to the good. Brandon Bowie sits on the cut line with 3,032 points. Nick Silver behind it, 3 points back. Lionel Calisto, 10 points back. Shane Ewing did struggle a little bit there and fell a good chunk in this race, finished 18th after trying to stay out, and he is 15 points back. Dwayne Vincent was busy tonight, could not run this evening, so he was always going to be 12th in the standings and has the ability, I think, to come up through the field at Talladega and at Kansas, but he'll need to put in 2 strong runs to go find his spot in the round of 8 and contend for the championship like he did last year, Brian.
Absolutely. Unfortunately for him, with Talladega coming next week, if he can catch a couple of these guys having a bad race, maybe get caught up in the big one, and he can get away with it cleanly and maybe come away with a top 5 finish or even a shot at the victory, he could certainly get right back into it. And on the other side of that, you've got to look at these guys that did not get the win here tonight. You've got to look at David Washington. You've got to look at David Comstock, Daniel Eberhardt. Yeah, they've got a pretty good gap over that cut right now, but if they get caught up in the big one next week at Talladega, that gap erases. And we saw just how quickly that gap can erase this past Sunday in the Monster Energy Cup Series for Kyle Busch. Had a great gap on the cutoff spot, had a wreck there in the middle of the racetrack, and unfortunately now he's looking at possibly not making it to the next round if he has a couple more bad races. So these guys have got to be on point over the next 2 races if they want to make it to the round of 8, and then business really picks up as we try to cut it down to 4. It's going to be a very exciting couple of weeks. I can't wait to see what happens.
Talladega next week, the fastest track on the schedule and one that can bring mayhem and terror, but for one driver, it will be a very, very, very happy Monday evening. And I think it will also be a pretty good evening if you can escape and not get caught up in any sort of wrecks if you're any of our playoff drivers as well. But that's all for next week. And it's time for us to say goodbye from the Queen City in the heart of the Carolinas. So we'll go ahead and wrap up tonight's coverage of the RealSimRacing.com Full Throttle Cup Series presented by Gary Mercer Trucking on LSRTV. From my colleague up in the booth, Mr. Brian Macklin, for the lovely and talented producer punching buttons down in our production trailer tonight, Cisco Scaramuza, for Kyle Barnes and Doug Atkinson at Real Sim Racing, and for Laura Lawson, DJ Lyon, and Evan Pashoko at LSRTV, I'm James Pike. Thank you so much for watching tonight's broadcast here from the Queen City, and we will see you down in Dixieland next Monday night, 9:35 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time.